Hey, alright guys, Simon here, and we're playing Socrates Jones, Pro-Philosopher, Chapter 4, The Pursuit of Happiness. And before I get into it, I just want to say that this is actually fairly difficult. like, I'm, oh man. I'm trying to talk about philosophy, and each of these chapters is like half an hour to 45 minutes long, or around about that. It's actually quite hard work focusing for this long. And reading the dialogue and then thinking about philosophy and then trying to explain this stuff, it's actually quite hard work. I can kind of understand why some people might not be into this. I mean, when I'm doing this to myself, it's easier. I think it's just the reading it and then thinking about it and then explain it. It just makes it a little bit harder. Whereas if I'm just playing by myself, I'm just reading and thinking by myself, I don't have to actually read things and explain things out loud, which makes things a bit easier. Anyway, enough complaining. Back to work. Man, this is tough business, man. All right, so the author says, "Well, I must say, Socrates, I'm impressed. Thank you." Uh-huh. Hobbes holds significant clout here in the intelligible realm. His ideas influenced later prominent thinkers such as John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and John Rawls. So they're all called John, except for the French guy who's called Jean. Besting him or even getting him to question the logic of his ideas is a significant accomplishment. I mean, I think Hobbes is... I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with the concept of the social contract. I just think it's not the source of morality. As I said at the end of the last video, it's a manifestation of a moral system, but it's not the source of morality. Which, I mean, if you say, well, describe a manifestation of a moral system, Hobbes, and then I wouldn't have anything to complain about it. It's just that if you say that's the source of morality, then that's not actually right. So anyway, let's just keep going. So does this mean Dad gets to come home now? No, the door is still closed. Indeed, your success here, while impressive, cannot be construed as providing an answer. They only mean that Socrates is ready... Oh, they only mean that Socrates is ready to face an even greater challenges. Oh, great. Okay then, so which arrogant know-it-all do I have the honor of facing next? I believe that would be me. Wait, is that... John Stewart Mill at your service. Alright, John... Just... Wikipedia, man. Most games have wikis. This game has Wikipedia. The actual Wikipedia. Was it John... Stewart Mill, there we go. Oh, he actually looks like that, look at that. Well, kind of. He's a little sharper there than he is there. The nose is a bit wrong. Anyway. English philosopher, political economist, and civil servant. An influential contributor to social theory, political economy. Alright, 19th century. What is he? 1873, or 1806 to 1873. Okay. He was a member of Parliament too. Oh, History of British East India, published 1818. Well, this is during the British Empire, I believe. So again, the context makes a difference. Remember, back who was the last guy? Hobbes. During Hobbes' time, there was war. And conflict and strife, and so in his description of humanity, he talks about how in the natural state people are brutish and I forgot what the other descriptions were, but pretty bad times for people. Whereas John Stewart Mill, if I remember right, this was a time of quite like Great Britain at that time was doing fairly well. British people. I don't know my history. I think the British Empire was doing quite well at this time. I'm not sure. Theory of liberty, yeah. And so with all the wealth and security coming in, like I mean, the chapter is called "The Pursuit of Happiness," and so given that people are quite a bit wealthier and safer during this time, his ideas talk about happiness being the source of morality, whereas the previous guy who lived during a time of conflict and war and whatnot, his ideas were that morality came out of suffering and conflict and war. So you see how they are kind of influenced by the circumstances of the world around them, as it were. Anyway, let's just keep playing the game. John Stewart Mill at your service. Legasp. It is. It is who? John Stewart Mill, one of the most prominent utilitarian philosophers. Dad. He was a member of Parliament and an early feminist as well. I've mentioned him at least 4 times today. I'm sorry. Not to worry, old chap. I'm sure we'll get to know each other quite well by the end of the day. Shall we begin? Wait, did they expect each of these to take a whole day? In our society, good comes from the accomplishment of some desirable end. See how he starts off with good, because he lives in a time of prosperity, whereas the other guy, Hobbes, starts off with terrible conflict and war, because he lived in a time of conflict and war. So I mean, like they talk about philosophy, but their philosophy and their thinking is shaped by the environment, not just based on logic and reasoning and anything. Nothing so pure. They are the ideas are colored by their surroundings and their circumstances. However, happiness and freedom from suffering are the only things truly desirable as ends. Okay. Thus, actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, wrong as they tend to promote or produce unhappiness. As a result, one should choose every action in order to maximize overall happiness. And there you have it, gentlemen. Happiness must be the source of all good. No, that's not really what you're saying. What he's really saying is that the happiness is the measure of all good. Not the source of all good, but the measure of all good. Because, by measuring how much happiness is produced, you can measure how much good it has produced. It's not the source. He's kind of using... I mean, it doesn't even necessarily equate happiness to good. He's basically using it as a way to identify good as happiness. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, there he doesn't... He seems to say that happiness equals good, but what he's actually saying is happiness. The good is determined by happiness, and not equivalent to happiness. But that I think I'm contradicting myself here. Oops, my bad. But the idea that it's like a ruler, using happiness as a ruler to measure how much good is being done. If it creates a lot of happiness, then it's a lot of good. But good and happiness are not the same thing. It just says the ruler is not the same thing as the thing you're measuring. Does that make sense? Anyway, so let's just go with the game. Good is happiness, added to the idea state, or the idea slate. I don't know. We're jumping a little bit. We're kind of, although obviously the game is not. It's not long and complex enough to actually go through all of these things in detail. Like they're kind of just giving you a brief outline of their philosophies, like in like 2 or 3 sentences. So it's probably not the philosopher's fault that there's so many gaps in these philosophies. It's probably the game trying to simplify things a little too much. At the same time, even this is quite hard work. So maybe it's what they have to do. This is the core of the idea behind act utilitarianism. I'm not gonna squeal like a girl. He's so amazing, isn't he amazing, Dad? No. Well, yes, but no. I guess. He's about 200 years older than you. Tone it down a bit. Well, Socrates, you have heard John's presentation. What's your intended course of action? Well, Dad, look, this is the closest thing to the nature of morality we are going to get. No, it's not, Ari. How do you know that? I've studied him for ages, that's how. He's brilliant. Come on, Dad, if you just acknowledge this, you can get out of here. Well, Socrates, do you accept Mill's principles? No, I don't. Actually, I believe I'll ask the MP a few questions if you don't mind. What? By all means, go ahead. It is only healthy for individuals to voice their queries. Trapped thoughts have no use after all. In our society, good comes from the accomplishment of some desirable end. I don't know. Desires are strange sometimes. I mean, desires might be mistaken. Like you might want, or you might think you want something, but the thing is not actually what you think it is. So you can make mistakes that way. Or some people might actually desire bad things. I mean, it's a little strange, but people aren't straightforward like that. Not everybody has the same value systems. I mean, and like even happiness and desire, like emotions have a way of sometimes being short-circuited, if that makes sense. For example, happiness, you can be naturally happy, but you can also take drugs and feel happiness, even though it's not really happiness. You kind of, the opioids are they're kind of like synthetic endorphins or something, and so the chemicals you're putting into your body are similar to the chemicals that your brain produces or your body produces when you're happy, but they're not. Like they're synthetic, and so you're kind of putting it in from an external source, so you feel happy, but it's not really because you're happy. It's because you took drugs. Right? So it's not. I mean, there's a lot of ways to hijack or bypass normal, mechanisms of emotions, and it's not a reliable thing, emotions. And you can get kind of stuck, or they can also malfunction. Like some people, for example, depression is it's a form of, I don't know. I mean, it's difficult to say. I was going to say it's a form of mental illness, but it's difficult to assess. I mean, sometimes people don't use the word depression, like clinical depression, I guess. Okay, clinical depression is a form of mental illness. But, some people say they're depressed when they're just sad. Whereas, if you talk to a psychologist about, or, a psychiatrist about depression, it's a different thing. Like they have a very specific definition of clinical depression, for example. So, but by clinical depression, I mean, but the way they describe it is like the chemicals in your brain are out of balance, and you're so saturated with these these sad chemicals that you can't, like your body can't recover from that, and so you're just perpetually sad, and that's clinical depression. Or I think that's what it is. I don't. You should look it up for yourself. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, or even a biologist. So, but I think that's how it is. So, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, they call it an illness because it's like a physical illness. Like if you break your arm is broken, right? And it's not going to fix itself. Like you kind of have to put it into a cast so that it can heal. And when they say kind of a mental illness, like your brain can also, malfunction. It's not a. I mean, people have certain stigmas about that, but it's just how it is. Like any sort of mechanism has the possibility of malfunctioning, and if the chemicals are wrong, then it's broken, right? And you kind of have to kind of fix it. What was I saying? Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that emotions are not a reliable way to measure things. It's like you're trying to use it as a ruler, but if everybody has a different ruler, then you're not really measuring anything, are you? Anyway. Question asked for clarification. What do you mean by that? Simply good is created by achieving or obtaining things that people desire. Yeah, again, desire can be counterproductive. Some people desire some pretty weird things. Weird. Some people desire things that are quite different from things that other people desire. Let's just say that. I don't want to judge people too much. But not everybody is the same. Only this will improve the quality of life. Exactly. Some people's desires might not actually correspond to improving the quality of their life. Like taking drugs, for example. They desire it. I mean, it's an addiction, maybe. It's not a positive thing, but they desire it. Press for backing. What evidence do you have to support that? In our society, the things we value have positive effects. Again, no, they don't. I mean, even let's kind of leave drugs aside, and alcohol and cigarettes and things like that. I mean, the diamonds. We value diamonds. Do diamonds actually have positive effects on anything? No, they just sparkle really prettily. They just bling. That's what it is. Like there's no positive effects generated from having diamonds, really. I mean, people get envious. I mean, if you want that, then okay, well you get that. We value a lot of things that don't actually have tangible positive effects too, right?